Hi everybody, happy Tuesday and welcome back to another bit of this. No need to fuck around today, let's get to it. Last week we talked about werewolf movies. This week I want to talk about werewolf books. Now I want to start by acknowledging that like werewolf movies, werewolf books can be very dicey. They can be really good, really fun, or they can just be long-winded not goodness. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about books that I've read and I can speak on intelligently, and I've also got some books. I'm sorry, I'm looking around because I'm surrounded by werewolf books right now. I will, in the comments section or the description of this video, I'll list all the books, including the ones that I've read and ones I have not yet gotten around to, so we get a nice big list of werewolf books for you to check out. And I do recommend it, even though I am going to talk about some books that I did not enjoy, and even though, as a werewolf lover, I openly admit there are lots of werewolf books that were wastes of my time. Let's put it that way. I still think you should read into them because, unlike a lot of other monsters, werewolves will span the subgenres of horror. I particularly like when bizarro writers will tackle a werewolf story because they come into it with a sense of humor, and we get really great stories as a consequence if the bizarro writer is talented, and a lot of them actually really are really imaginative, really talented people. And some of my favorite werewolf short stories were written by bizarro writers. So let's get started. So any list that you look up talking about werewolf books will all pretty much start with the Howling Trilogy by Gary Brandner, I guess that's how you say it. Brandner, I don't know. Online there's an extra N in there sometimes there isn't. The Howling Trilogy, this guy holds like the king's place in modern werewolf fiction. I love the Howling movie, which is only loosely based on the first book. I think it's the third Howling movie that's based more closely on the book. Here's the thing. I like the movie more than I like the books. The first book, it's okay. Absolutely, I would read it again. The second book, I was so sick of these characters. I was so sick of the plot. I was so sick of what was going on by the time I got to the middle of the third book. I actually don't think I finished the third book. I was just so sick of the whole thing. So I'm not a lover of these books, but obviously I'm in the minority. These books are a huge deal to werewolf lovers. They make the list. They have to. I just threw my pencil. They make the list. They have to because it's the Howling Trilogy. So another book that I want to talk about is Blood and Rain by Glenn Rolfe. This is a full-length novel, and I won't say this a lot about werewolf books, but this is a really, honestly good werewolf book. Glenn is a guy, he is a big werewolf fan, and this book shows that. This book reads like a 1980s, early 1990s werewolf movie. It really does. It plays out like a movie. It's got everything you want in a werewolf story. You get the monster, you get what the monster looks like, you get the paranoia of the werewolf in human form, you get the violence. It's a fantastic book, highly recommended. The next I want to talk about is a book called Feral by Matt Serafini. This is also a great book. Great monsters. We get female, mostly werewolves in this, which I like. Werewolves do tend to be masculine for the most part. We get a lot of female werewolves, and we get a lot of female werewolves who are not so much the rage monsters that the male werewolves tend to be. They tend to be more calculating. They tend to be manipulative in seduction, which are kind of stereotypes of the femme fatale. These are just femme fatales in monster form, and that certainly plays out in Feral. It's it's done well. This is a trope that can be tired sometimes, but Matt Serafini does a really good job. Also, check out the book by Serafini called Devil's Row. Now, this one also contains vampires. I'm not going to do the monster mishmash here. We're going to mostly concentrate on werewolves, but characters that are in feral are also in Devil's Row. And Devil's Row is a great book. Totally recommend it. So we got those. What's next? Oh, so actually, let's get through. I want to talk about Wolfland by Jonathan Janz next. I mean, Jonathan Janz pretty much does nothing wrong. I've never read anything of his that I've not liked, and that includes Wolfland. This is this is a shorter but still full-length novel, and this is fantastic rage monster book. I think when I read it, the thing that I really came away with, besides fantastic rage monster book, all the eyeball smashing and destroying that happens in this book. There's a lot of eyeball violence going on. Fantastic. I love it. I loved every second of it. Wolfland by Jonathan Janz. Great. What else? Okay, so on the Ghostwriters podcast last week, we had our book club episode, and it was my turn to pick, and I picked a book that I had not read before. I think that's how it should be. I don't think my co-hosts agree with me on that. They're picking books that they know and are tried and true, which may actually be a good idea, because the book that I ended up picking, we didn't really like. I wanted to make sure I picked a book by a female writer to make sure we're representing, and I wanted to make sure I picked a book by a female writer whose reputation and position as a writer is secure enough that in case we didn't like the book, we were not going to harm this person at all, hurt their reputation. And Melanie Tem is certainly in that position. She's a Stoker award-winning author, we lost her. But I picked Wilding, of course, because it's a werewolf book. This was not a good book. By all means, listen to the episode, but most of us were not fans, and there are reasons. The storytelling choices were complicated, where the author chose to do sort of stream of consciousness narrative, and we end up with not a lot of detail. We end up with a lot of skipping of time. Whereas, when you read a werewolf book, you want a rage monster book. We didn't get a lot of that. We got a lot of anger, but we didn't get a whole lot of monster. Not a lot. We needed more. Yeah. So, but still, check it out. Give it a try. You might like it. Art is subjective. What I like, you may love. What I love, you may hate. Still give it a try. It's going to be on the list. So what I want to talk about before I finish, I will talk about anthologies here in a minute, because if you can find a werewolf anthology, get it. Werewolf anthologies are where it's at. I don't know why, but werewolves really do best in short story form. 6,000 words, you get a great punchy story, fast paced, and werewolves really do better with fast paced. Not all monsters do. Werewolves kind of stand apart in this because you can tend to get too much fluff in a story, like literal air where it's not needed. You need action, you need tenseness, you need the hot emotions in a werewolf novel, and there's the temptation to meet a certain word count with books sometimes, and you end up kind of losing what would have made the story fun. I've read quite a few books where if they made it so much shorter, it would have been all about the fun. So before I get to the anthologies, I've got 2 more books to talk about. The first one is by Eric Red. We talked about Eric Red last week. He was the director of the movie Bad Moon. Fantastic movie. It's based on the book Thor. The book Thor needs to be on this list. I cannot remember who wrote it, but it will be on the list. That book, Thor, is from the point of view of a German Shepherd dog. The story is told through the eyes of a German Shepherd dog. Now, that is a choice which could have gone disastrously wrong, could have bored the hell out of you, and it didn't. It's fantastic. It is a great book. It is a great werewolf book where you get animal awareness of another animal. Just trust me. It is a great book. Cannot recommend enough. But Eric Red, he wrote a book called The Guns of Santa Sangre. And, okay, so here's the thing about Eric Red. He is kind of an old school horror guy, both Hollywood and apparently written word, where I think some of these guys never took into consideration that women are also horror fans. Women are also going to be watching your movies and reading your books. And as a consequence, there are some things concerning women that are a little ridiculous, which we don't really get in Bad Moon. We get the, obligatory boob shot, because Eric Red is going to do that, of course. But there's a little bit, it's very little bit of ridiculousness concerning women in this. But The Guns of Santa Sangre is a little long for what it is, but it is a fast-paced, hellishly violent book about werewolves in the Old West. And we'll get to another one of werewolves in the Old West. We're having sort of a boom of splatter westerns right now, where horror westerns and splatter westerns are kind of doing their walk around the block of the genre right now. But this has been going on for a while. And for some odd reason, werewolves in the Old West is a thing. It's been a thing for a while. And this is a good book. The Guns of Santa Sangre by Eric Red. The other book I have to bring it up, is The Cycle of the Werewolf, the novelette by Stephen King. Now, if you can get your hands on the one that's illustrated by Berni Wrightson, get it, because the book is worth the price, the very little price, just for the illustrations alone. Can you see that? Can you see that amazing illustration? It's beautiful. Now, I hear this novelette, this story, get a bit of crap because of a choice Stephen King made with the calendar year. Now, he chose to have the full moon land on identifiable, profound dates every month, like the 4th of July, Valentine's Day. And there's no way with how the current calendar works that this would ever happen in real life. And actually, it seems like Stephen King was like, he'd already gotten some crap for it, because it's not in here. Where did I read it then? Oh, there's an afterword. Yeah, there's an afterword in the book where he addresses it, because he knows that he's going to get shit for this decision he made with the full moon falling on these easily identifiable dates every month. And it's just like, look, I just decided to make a choice. And it's a thin book. Can you see? Very, very thin. Which means there's not a whole lot of story there. Which is fine, because it is very action-packed. Stephen King, when he does novel writing, I don't think it's an understatement to say he is not someone who has an economy of words. He can do those big, gigantic things because he can write with a lot of fluff and a lot of... It's something that I both love and get annoyed with by. Lifelong Stephen King fan, always will be, but that is something that bothers me. And I think that might be because I think Stephen King is maybe one of 3 people who are the best short story writers living today. The best. I think Stephen King is at his best when he's writing short stories. So this is a perfectly... Cycle of the Werewolf, perfectly wonderful werewolf story. I mean, a lot of people don't like it because I think a lot of people... I see this a lot with novelettes and novellas where it's like, I wish there was more story. And it's like, you don't get it. It was meant to be short. It's meant to be punchy. So yeah. Now I want to talk about the anthologies. Again, because I think this is where the stories tend to sing. This is where werewolf fiction really hits best. The first one, this is not an anthology. I'm messing up my thing. Full Moon in the West. This is called The Grave Marker Book Number 7 by Dominic Stabile. I hope that's how you pronounce his name. It'll be written out for you to see. I don't know. I remember this book. This is another full moon Werewolf in the Wild West book. Totally great. Totally great. It's a revenge book, and we get great monster action in this. Check it out. Anthologies. Full Moon Slaughter. This is an anthology that features a lot of this is the one that features like bizarro writers, extreme horror writers, the Sisters of Slaughter in this. If you know anything about the Sisters of Slaughter, they are huge werewolf fans, and they have a great story in this anthology. This anthology is edited by a guy, I don't know how to pronounce this name. It's like a silly spelling. It's like Tonai Einot. I'm so sorry if I'm not pronouncing that right. I really am. I love this book. This book contains a short story that the author made a choice to go kind of silly and funny. And I don't want to give anything away, but I think about this story all the time. I will be sitting doing nothing, minding my own business, and the thought of the story coming into my head, and I will just start laughing. This is a fantastic anthology. Now, to go a little more recognizable, a little more highbrow horror, if you can, with werewolves. But I mean, I'm going to read you some of the authors. The book Curse of the Full Moon. This was edited by James Lauder, and I mean, I don't know if you can get this online anymore. We'll have to look, but I got this at a secondhand store. Now, Ramsey Campbell, Harlan Ellison, Neil Gaiman, Joe Lansdale, Tanith Lee, George R.R. Martin, Michael Moorcock. Like, there's a fantastic roster of authors who contributed to this, and these are really, 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 really good werewolf stories. It's kind of a thick book, but these are legitimately fantastic werewolf stories. Something else that I have in the realm of werewolves. Now, this is just me. I'll put them in the description down below anyway because I talk about them here. But I have sort of reference books about werewolves. One is just called Werewolves by John Izzard. And then the other one is A Field Guide to Shapeshifters, Lycanthropes, and Man-Beasts, Werewolves by Dr. Bob Curran, author of Vampires, and illustrated by Ian Daniels. So beautiful illustrations in this. And this one is full of illustrations and photographs. And it talks about sort of werewolves in pop culture, like movies and music, video games, stuff like that. This one tends to cover more folklore and historical context. I told you, I'm a huge fan of werewolves, so I have those books. I've gone through them. I've enjoyed them. And I think, please check out the books that I list below. I will also include books I have not yet gotten to, but I think you should check out anyway because werewolf books are awesome. Why wouldn't you? And that'll be it for me today. So I hope the world is treating you kind. I hope everything is okay, and I hope you're enjoying, hopefully in your area, the shifting weather. We'll be able to sit outside again and maybe spend a little more time together soon. And we'll see if the damn clicker's going to do me dirty again this week. So that'll be it for me. Bye. It's doing it. Oh, come on, clicker.